Josh Blackman is a constitutional law professor at South Texas College of Law. He joins us now from Houston. Thank you for your time, Mr. Blackman. How will these legal bids by Donald Trump and his team actually work? What's the process going through all of the sort of different courts and how long it might take?
The lawsuits try to argue that some votes were improperly cast. Perhaps an absentee ballot was not mailed in the right deadline. Perhaps a person didn't sign the right form. Perhaps a person made an error on the ballot and the ballot should be discarded. At bottom, they're trying to knock out certain ballots they say were cast inconsistently with the law.
OK, for this result, though, to be overturned, he would have to litigate in several states, right, and win in those states. What are the chances of that actually happening?
Very low. This sort of litigation works when there's a very thin, a very small margin of victory, maybe a few hundred or a few thousand votes. At this point, President Trump is behind by tens of thousands of votes in 4 or 5 different states, depending how you count. It's very unlikely that this litigation can lead to enough change votes to flip the outcome of the election.
But what if it's still in the courts by the time the Electoral College meets in mid-December? What happens then?
I think this litigation will draw to a close very, very quickly. The courts, I think, will dismiss them. The appeals will run out. And if it's not even close, I think the U.S. Supreme Court will just take a pass and say it's not for us to decide. This has no actual bearing on the outcome of the election. I think all of this will be over in the next few weeks. When the Electoral College meets in mid-December, this litigation should be final.
It would be incredible if it transpired this way, but let's just game this out. What if Donald Trump refused to leave the White House?
It doesn't really matter. This is a sort of persistent fear or fantasy, depending who you're asking. On January 20th, the Chief Justice, John Roberts, will swear in Joe Biden. He'll become president, and President Trump will be out of town. I'll give you an anecdote. In 1800, John Adams lost the election to Thomas Jefferson. They were huge rivals. And John Adams hated Jefferson so much, he actually left Washington, D.C. in the middle of the night to skip the inauguration. So he left in the dark of night. I think Trump will make a similar exit at some point before January 20th runs out.
It seems there's a lot of different issues being taken as well. I mean, absentee ballots, the counting process, signatures. It seems like the Trump campaign is sort of just throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. What's your take?
I think the purpose of this litigation is not necessarily to win, but to create a sense of doubt, of uncertainty for as long as possible, hoping that something else happens. You know, maybe there's some allegation where 100,000 ballots were dumped in a dumpster in Michigan somewhere, right? There's some massive allegation of fraud, which, you know, if there's evidence, bring it forward. So keeping things settled. This is why the president was so upset that some of the networks called Arizona for Biden early on, because it put Biden closer to the magic number of 270 electoral votes. This litigation is designed for show. It's not going to win. It's going to go through the process. And even if he succeeds, unlikely, but if he succeeds, Biden will still be the president.
What about getting the supporters of Donald Trump on side? And I don't just mean getting them behind Joe Biden. I mean, you know, so many people are listening to Donald Trump when he's saying there's voter fraud, when he's saying this needs to go through the courts. What about all of those people who support him in that and want to see it go through the courts? I mean, that is an important thing that we must keep in mind here, right?
Right. You know, I heard your clip a moment ago. Biden said that he received more votes than any other candidate in American history, about 74 million. That's true. Trump received 71 million. Right. So I know perhaps a lot of people don't like Donald Trump, maybe in your audience in particular, but there's a significant chunk of Americans who like him and voted for him despite everything that's happened in the last 4 years, perhaps because of everything that's happened in the last 4 years. And a lot of them firmly believe that this election was a scam and that they were ripped off. So what I would like to see is if there's evidence of massive widespread voter fraud, bring it forward. But if the courts consider the evidence and say this is not substantial, it's not real, then at that point, the people, I think, will have to move on with their lives and say, OK, there was an election. We had 71 million votes. The other side had 74 million votes. And in 5 states, there were very close margins. But we just didn't cut it. Try again in 4 years. And I think that's the posture what people should take. Whether they take it, I can't tell you.
I guess if Biden's dream of unity is to be achieved, those people and their concerns also have to be addressed, right? Hey, thank you so much for your time. We'll have to leave it there. Josh Blackman, a constitutional law professor at South Texas College of Law.
Thank you so much.